Hello and welcome to our channel. Today we are going to discuss the karmic nature of a nation. It's just a little topic that my brother and I had up in a study last night along with my wife who's with us today, and we thought we would just bring it out, some of our points that we had last night, and talk about it with y'all and bring along for the conversation.
I I think that it is important that we do discuss some of these things that we just happened to embark on last night. The karmic nature of each individual uh, does reflect, I think, does enlarge itself into a city, into a state, into a full fledged nation state. Uh, how could it not? We are, as we believe, connected, and if we are connected, we do create a karmic cycle for ourselves. And if we fail to take any action that we see around us that is bad, like if we're not somehow promoting um, the advancement of love and security, food security, financial security, promoting good, healthy work ethics that still allow for leisure and enjoyment of your relationships and to learn other things. I think we do ourselves a disservice and a society as a whole. That's really what nuts and bolts of it we were discussing. And what do you do when your country, let's say everybody knows we just pulled out of Afghanistan, so if you spend to whatever they're telling us is obviously a lie, but
Well, it's still over $2 trillion, which is a considerable number.
right, and all the trillions of dollars that are unaccounted for just in military spending. So, the day before the original 9/11, there's old Donald Rumsfeld says he's missing $2.3 trillion. So if you're missing $2.3 trillion, now it's approximately somewhere between 6 and 8 trillion. Nobody really knows. And that's such a large number that as a nation, and talking about the karma of a nation, if we destroy people's lives and all in the name of whatever, whether some of it is justified or not is really irrelevant, in that we have wasted such a large sum of money that we could have provided good clean water, good sanitation the world over. We could have supplied solar panels for the world with just the money that's missing. It is quite enormous. Just to give people an idea, where people have been throwing around this new. It's not a new number, but it's new in the vernacular of society now. That's trillions.
And trillions a very, very, very big number.
It's so big that if you convert seconds into days, people think of millions and billions and trillions. Well, seconds into days is 11.5 days, 11.57 to be exact. So 11 days to accumulate 1,000,000 seconds. To do the same thing to days converted, there are seconds converted into days with billions, it's 11,574 days. That's a massive jump between a million and a billion. 11 to 11,000, big difference.
And we're not even over yet. We still have trillions to go.
And if you do the convert seconds into days in a trillion, it is 11,574,000 days. That's big. You go from 11, basically a little more than 11 for a million, 11,000 for a billion, to 11 million for a trillion. It's so large you can't wrap your mind around it, and we're throwing these terms around so loosely that people become desensitized to what you're even saying.
Well, I think that's the point, is you throw out these numbers and they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's always in your face. It's commonplace. I mean, I remember growing up as a kid, somebody would say, no, I told you 1,000,000 times. Well, no, you didn't say a million times. I think that's dangerous language. You're putting those huge numbers and making it like a context that you can understand when it's not. Like a million is a huge number. So we say, oh, I told you a million times. Well, that's just that speak out there in the societal norm that these numbers keep getting bigger and bigger. And it's just okay because nobody really has a concept of it. And just like as a kid, you throw around a million.
It's a very difficult proposition to wrap your mind around, but a trillion is so large, we could do so many things for the good with these trillions that are unaccounted for, much less all the money that we can account for and all of our ridiculous foreign aids, our wars, death and destruction, all in the name of whatever the flavor of the day is at that time. But spiritually, does that all collectively come back onto the nation? Does it collectively come back on us individually because we're a part of this collective?
I would have to say yes, it has to in some way because you're donating to it. You're putting your dollars to those evils. I mean, yeah, a lot of that money is not really tax money, it's just printed out of thin air. But you still do have a say in it. I mean, your taxes do go to that. So, what are you willing to do to keep your karmic cycle clean or more clean? Are you going to go get put in a cage for not paying your taxes, even though you think it's an evil thing to do? I mean, you're left and you're stuck in a pretty difficult situation. I mean, you want to collectively change your karmic cycle, but then there's consequences and ramifications for those actions. So, what do you do as a common person?
It's a very difficult proposition, and it's something that is where the conversation at least even needs to start. Uh, because you don't really hear much talk about it other than, hey, we got to go stop this one particular issue. We have to stop, whatever whatever destruction is going on in the world. But trillions is a lot, and when you think about if you want to take a good action or a bad action, and then people define what is good and bad, and there's no good intent, that goes unpunished. Intention, you do a good deed, no good deed goes unpunished. So it does beg the question. You want to be real careful what you do, but if you're going to do something, and you're just going to throw away a bunch of money because you got to support some military industrial complex or big ag complex or big whatever complex, you might as well get after it if you got ulterior motives in doing throwing government funds around to increase your wealth or some group's wealth. Well, help the whole karmic cycle, if you will. Be evil if that's what you're going to do, no matter what. You're not going to change your ways, so you can still rob the people and make a fortune. Is basically, I would rather those people in control of those monies spend on solar and mining for silver to make solar panels, to put them everywhere all over the world so people can have good clean water pumps.
Cheap renewable energy.
Cheap renewable energy everywhere. People have the ability to have good lighting in their homes, provide, invest in lithium batteries for people worldwide that places where electricity are not found are so poorly done. Like whenever we were in Old Delhi, and God, man, those electric wires and stuff were just maddening and completely unsafe. I mean, it's maddening, but there are places in the world that, shanty towns in Guatemala, horrible places outside of Buenos Aires. I mean, it goes on forever.
No, you don't even have to go that far. You can go to Shreveport and see things that are very close that can be bad. I mean, there's terrible parts of, I don't think most people want to live in Detroit or Chicago.
No, I mean, you got parts of those areas that are absolutely like war zones. So if we're spending all this money for death and destruction everywhere else, why not do that and utilize those funds for good? Yeah, at least help people have the basic resources and to sleep decently at night. You had a clean shower. You had running water. You're able to heat and cool wherever you live. by a whole bunch of different things. Just the thermal aspect. I mean, there's so many different architectural designs and things that we could do with the use of the earth, and architectural designs that would help facilitate a much happier earth and a happier individual and a happier society.
With $2 trillion can go a long way. Let's just think about things that we could do on our own country. California is always complaining about not having enough water. Well, they're a coastal state. Texas, just a couple years ago, they put in a prop just to see what our best solution for water in the future was. Cost them $2 billion. That they came back with, well, we're a coastal state. You could have a desalination plant. You could provide our entire country with as much water as they can possibly have, free, good water that comes just from desalination plants. Then you would never have to worry about water in this country again. With $2 trillion, there'd be no end to the fresh water, which means you could grow more, you could feed your people more. It has all kinds of benefits that you could have done instead of spending that money killing a handful of people in a country that's full of sand.
I think you make a good point, especially with taking the salt out of the water. Because I've heard the argument even recently. Oh, it's just so expensive, and it's like a refinery almost. You have to have these massive facilities, which is probably true depending on how many. That is true depending on how many people you're going to serve with it. But it's not that complicated. You can go into any boat. I say any. The boats that have their own little desalination plants on them. They're this big. They're nothing to them. And
yeah, it's not a huge leap in technology to make it bigger, really.
No, most live-on boats or sailboats have them. They need fresh water on their boat, and there's nothing to them. So I don't know what the big. It's hard to wrap your mind around why you wouldn't utilize that same technology to do whatever community. Have a bunch of them, bunch of small ones everywhere.
Well, that's just something we can do in our own country, and every other country that spends that kind of money on the military-industrial complex could use that money for desalination plants and solve a lot of the world's problems by just being able to provide good, clean, fresh water to everyone. That's a huge deal. One of the leading causes of sickness in any of those shanty towns or bad neighborhoods, like I'm talking about shanty towns, like in Guatemala and India, places like that, South Africa is cleaning, giving them good, clean water. That goes a long way for just the benefits of humanity.
Sure, and how to have good sanitation, and not only septic tanks, but they're fantastic permaculture ways to get rid of human waste. That is good for the earth, good for the people, because they're not wallowing around in their own human feces and urination, which is nasty, but that does happen in many places around the world. It's okay to let all of this to happen and this to go on, and then making enemies out of people by bombing and killing them worldwide. I think it ultimately comes down to that: if we will pay the price with our own personal souls in the whole karmic cycle if we don't recognize that there are better ways to help humanity than drone strikes.
Yeah, there's probably a lot better ways to help really anything other than going to violence and bomb strikes, and just the amount that the U.S. spent in air conditioning in Iraq or Iran or Afghanistan. Just pick one of them, just one of the countries, what the U.S. spent just in air conditioning for the troops in that 20-year time span. Think about what that could do to your infrastructure, your roads and bridges, upgrading your rail station. Amtrak is a joke in this country. It's not like you go to Europe and you can take the train anywhere. No, you can't take the train anywhere. Now, what could you do just for your own personal infrastructure? Like upgrade the bus system, upgrade public transportation in all the major cities everywhere. For just what was spent on air conditioning in any one of those three countries over a 20-year stretch.
Well, except for Iran, we just weren't there in a massive way. But for certainly Iran, God, it's just, Iraq, God, it's just insane. But it goes to the whole point of not only just that, but the whole attitude as a nation, we like to think of ourselves as a good and benevolent nation, and in order to attain our imagination and for that to become realized, then we really need to evaluate what it is that we do as a nation worldwide. Uh, it's pretty important. It's pretty critical, and there are a lot of ways to do that. But for one, it's really easy to see that we create enemies from a lot of people, and
You don't have to create these.
you don't have to create these enemies. We don't have to have economic hitmen doing things from changing leadership in Chile to Mossadegh and Iran to Libya was, people think that was a great thing. Now we turned that place into chaos. It's sickening, really, that we do a lot of what we do whenever we could be doing a lot of great things for humanity. What do you have to say, Ashley? we invited my wonderful sister-in-law with us in here, Trey's wife. And
she's shy. It's okay.
She's on camera and she just refuses to. She refuses. She has her hand over her head. But these things are important because if we don't recognize our own flaws in ourselves and start exploring our own faults for our own karmic cycle, then how can we ever get to the nation state and start exploring that? And it's kind of what last night when we were talking, everybody gets so upset and on the defensive really easy. It's hard to have conversations anymore because everybody's offended about everything.
I mean, everything. And I think being offended is a good thing. First off, it makes you question yourself and why you even believe what you believe. I mean, that's why people have such a hard time with being offended or upset. They don't want to question why they even feel a certain way on something. And they can't defend the way that they feel, so they have to get upset.
I was listening to Jordan Peterson was being interviewed by somebody that I saw yesterday morning, that he said maybe it's that over time, over this past 25 years, maybe there's a lot more things to be offended by than there were 30 years ago. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it's an interesting thought that maybe there's just a lot more things because technology has made people do so many different odd self promoting sort of things that are just that would have seemed strange to us 25 years ago or offensive 25 years ago, but now it's all thrown at us nonstop from every angle, all information, all these people's different attitudes from the far right, far left, in the center. Everybody's offending everybody. This marketing campaign's offensive for whatever reason because I'm a vegan and now then the beef. There's just so much. So does that make does that increase the problem that we're all offended? I don't know. It was an interesting. Google or search for Jordan Peterson. It's a fun interview about being offended, but I don't know. But what does it do to the karmic cycle for us to continue to promote all things that aren't beneficial to ourselves? And then what is the definition of beneficial to humanity? And everybody gets into these arguments. I mean, people can't even decide on what is the right form of Christianity.
Isn't that true?
So how can you even define right and wrong? What is to the benefit? What is not?
Well, I would clearly think that spending money probably to go kill a handful of people would probably go over less well than going out to help millions of people. But I don't know. I think it would be clear to say that we can use this money to A, go bomb somebody back into the Stone Age, or B, have free clean water for everybody. It seems like that would be an easy choice of what's good and what's bad. It would seem like that would be an easy thing to agree, that free water for everybody that lives in your country as opposed to bombing another country to the dirt. Seems like that wouldn't be a tough choice.
No. I mean, there's so many different ways for people to get free electricity. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to create generators that would save everybody a tremendous amount of money, but you can't do that because then all of a sudden you're digging into the pockets of the big utility companies and the big oil, big everything. You can't have that. You can't have the civilization that these citizens all being autonomous, all being free to make their own choices within their house. You know, that if they want to leave their light on all night so they can see their wife sleep and be reminded of why life is so wonderful, they can do that without having to worry about this LED light, LED light. It's just it's an interesting idea that is quite possible for us to have spent all these trillions on providing good minerals, good supplements, promoting healthy lifestyles instead of subsidizing sugar, subsidizing things that are bad for you, that obviously cause obesity, heart problems, all these things, when we could be using money. We have these National Ad Society or whatever, or whatever it is. It's the federal government has its own ad agency, basically, is what it boils down to. And they spend billions of dollars on all sorts of ad campaigns for the federal and state governments. Why not use that to really coerce and persuade people and remind them of the health benefits of taking long walks? Why shouldn't the government spend money on one less drone and instead create safe walking paths in different places where people can get out and just passively walk, say hi to their neighbors? Because most people live in these subdivisions, these cookie cutter homes. They don't even know their neighbor other than a wave every now and then when they happen to see them to and from work. So all of those things go into the karmic cycle of a nation. So we're depriving, we have the ability to do those things, to do a whole lot of things, but we don't. To give people the individual choice on how to raise their child in such a way that if instead of having big high schools everywhere or different types of schools, you could have a whole myriad of educational resources at parents' fingertips that would to give them a lot of choice.
Well, there's a lot of things that we could do just in the school system to alleviate a lot of those problems without even spending anything from the other part of the government budget. Just most of the money that goes to schools is wasted. It's put forth to the Coliseum so one kid can go bash another kid's brains out on Friday night.
Yeah,
if they just spent that money, how much right down the road, the school had a $1.8 million scoreboard. There's schools in Texas that have heated AstroTurf.
Yeah, well, and Jefferson, Texas is rated as, it's a poverty-stricken zone. So what would 1.8 million mean to some of these, poverty-stricken kids right there in the community? Instead, you steal from other property owners for a $1.8 million billboard.
Yeah.
None of these things make any sense. Instead of buying books and giving to these kids, like teaching them classics, teaching them Socrates, Plato. That goes on. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Why wouldn't you discuss these things ad nauseum with these kids?
You could buy a lot of books or a lot of other nice physical equipment that the school could have an open gymnasium for the entire populace to come and use with a good set of weights and exercise equipment, basketball courts that could be open to the community that the community is forcibly paying for, but no, it goes to a scoreboard. It gets lit up, 4 times in 1 year?
Right. I just think we have to be cognizant and conscious of the fact that collectively we do harm. And if you want to define harm as keeping a large portion of the population ignorant for waste of money, if you want to consider collectively being bad as bombing other countries and having substantial or even one collateral damage out of that, meaning actually murdering the wrong people. That happens frequently. Uh, I think people could easily understand how you can create enemies that way. You know, if somebody, some other country came over here and thought you were a bad guy, or your neighbor was, and so they accidentally get your house instead of the neighbor, you're not home, and all of a sudden your wife and child are gone because, you know, some other country made a mistake. I think all of a sudden you become that country's enemy. Well, that happens a lot. We don't talk about it, you know, just in small circles around the country. Everybody else is, you know, busy, like we talked about. How do you even have these conversations? How do you have conversations about the karmic nature of a nation, which ultimately filters down directly to us individually? With people, whenever they get up in the morning, the first thing they do is they're in a hurry. They give their kids whatever they got to give them, food, whatever. Some of them have to take and drop them off in a hurry. Some of them have to get them ready for the bus. You know, they go off to work. They're working all day. They get home. They're tired. They got to pick up their kids or arrange to have their kids or picked up, or they get a bus. When they get home, they got to not only, you know, most people work till 5 o'clock. Well, you know, the day's practically over. You know, you get home. You may or may not help your kids with their homework. Maybe you got to cut the grass today. Maybe, you know, there's all these little honeydew chores. And by the time you do that, you had no leisure time. You had no time to think really for yourself. All you had to do was be worried about, well, I got this house note. I got this car note. I got to pay for these cell phone bills. I have all this electric bill, water bill. I'm stressed out. I got to work harder. And I have no time to think or do anything for myself. That's the way majority of the United States and the Western civilization is. There's no time to think. There's no time to reflect. That's why everybody gets these ingrained ideas of whatever it is, you know, from their youth or just in passing, and they don't even explore them. They don't even explore them to know if they even make any logical sense. So there is no leisure. There is no, got this little stupid gnat, but I love you, gnat. I don't want to kill you. But it's a strange phenomenon to think that we are the masters of our own fate to a large degree currently in this country. Somewhat. It continues to be diminished every day, but we can still make differences in how things operate if a large enough people vote with their dollars about how they think. If people take action and really think about what's important. What's important for the soul of our country, for the soul of the world. We're all connected. And
voting with your dollars, like you just said, is the most important thing you can do. I mean, people think we vote every 4 years in this country for the president that shapes and molds the way everything works. It's not really how it works. You vote with your dollars. You support the companies that are in line with what you believe, and you don't support the companies that are not in line with what you believe, because those big companies especially have lobbyists at Washington's doors that are influencing policy much or more than any politician. So you have the power to not give them the power to do that over your lives. I mean, if somebody doesn't agree with you in a corporate stance, then you don't support that company.
I think one of the things that you just mentioned is vital, and actually one of the solutions to part of this issue is, you know, if we don't agree with wage inequality, if we, you know, between the rich and the disparity between the rich and the poor, whether a lot of companies that inside the company have massive things like that, well, let's just don't buy from them. If you believe that's a problem, don't buy from them. If you love it, if you think CEOs and those guys should make every last drop they can and suppress the people that are making it all possible, well, you support them. But hopefully we are persuaded by our humanity to be humane and empathetic and sympathetic in such ways that we do navigate this world by supporting things that promote the betterment and betterment of everybody. You know, to be in better physical shape, to be in better financial shape, to be able to have long form conversations, to get to the heart of a matter, to talk about your own personal karma. You know, if you do something bad or you talk about somebody or you just little things come back to bite you. I mean, everybody has noticed it. Everybody's experienced it. So we want to avoid that. So we're not having these constant cycles of bad, 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 doing more bad, bad, bad.
You know, maybe that's why everyone thinks they have such a bad life and they're forced into this slavery thing, is because they've already started their karmic cycle by paying the money that goes to those things, and it's just constantly coming back to bite you. So even though you're not aware that your money is being put to use for that, you're still getting the karmic return on it, and all these things that you think are bad in your life, and oh, I got to work this and I got to do this and I got to do this. Well, maybe that's just the whole karma circle coming back to get you because you're inadvertently supporting those things. Yeah, the karma can't tell the difference between what you have intentionally done and what you have unintentionally done, which is not any different than you offending someone either intentionally or unintentionally. You're going to have to pay for those ramifications no matter what.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, and it's important. I think we've beat this drum enough that we just need to be aware. And one of the solutions of being aware when we see things that we don't like is vote with our dollars, support and do things that with people know where your food comes from that you buy for your kids, that it's not poison. You know, there's karmic cycles in that. You're going to create harm with people you love. All of a sudden, you are supporting governments that kill innocent people. Okay, that's very bad. Come to the realization of there are things that have honest and true debates, whether they're good or bad. Some dentists believe it's really important to have fluoride in the water, or some dentists and other doctors and scientists believe it's really harmful, like the Harvard study that says it's absolutely harmful. There are debates what's good and bad, and then if you don't like this particular thing, you have the ability to make your voices known. You have the ability to have studies to show other people that are not aware of certain things. You have the ability to talk to your neighbors about why we shouldn't create enemies in foreign nations and waste trillions and trillions of dollars, and how we should hold governments accountable if they just say, hey, we tried to do an audit, but we can't find $6 to $8 trillion. We don't even know if that's how much we lost or spent, or we don't know. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of money that could have done otherwise transformed the United States. That's so much money. It is quite literally transformative that could have happened here in such a large way. Talk about a shining city on a hill. Our infrastructure would be phenomenal. It's a sad situation, but we can vote with our dollars. We can opt just to never vote on who wins. None of the above. None of the above wins in the elections. That's probably one of the better things. Well, Mr. Smith, we just want to talk about the karmic nature. We do believe in things coming back in full circle. Everything from geometric cycles, mystical geometry. There are cycles that continue to repeat themselves, and we don't want bad things repeating onto each other, the people we love, our community, the nation, the world, as the best we can. So to have solutions, the only one I can think of just at the moment is vote with your dollar.
Yeah. It really comes down to that. Well, I'd like to thank everybody out there for watching us. Please hit the like and subscribe and hit the thumbs up. Thank you. Have a good day.